Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I have a different and creepy video for you. I searched and found 6 horror movies that are based on true creepy events. So grab your flashlight, lock the door, and let's step into the darkness together. Joe Ball, eaten alive. In the 1930s, Joe Ball was a former bootlegger and famed ladies' man who owned the Sociable Inn in the sleepy town of Elmendorf, Texas. To entertain his guests, Ball built a swampy pond behind the hotel and filled it with 5 alligators. He would apparently charge guests a hefty fee to watch him feed live kittens and dogs to the gators. In retrospect, that was probably a warning sign, because the Sociable Inn also experienced an unusually high staff turnover. Waitresses and barmaids were always vanishing without a trace. Between 1934 and 1938, local women such as Minnie Gotthard, Dolores Goodwin, Hazel Brown, and Julia Turner were all reported missing while working for Ball. After a neighbor informed the police that Joe had a barrel behind his sister's barn that smelled like rotting flesh, deputies visited the Sociable Inn to take him in for questioning. Ball responded by opening the cash register, pulling out a revolver, and shooting himself in the heart. Hotel handyman Clifton Wheeler later led the police to the remains of Hazel Brown, admitting that he had helped Ball bury her. The story soon spread that Ball had also thrown body parts to his alligators, although this remains impossible to prove or disprove. While there was no physical evidence of Ball's feeding tactics, his story quickly became infamous and was Tobe Hooper's inspiration for the character of Judd in his film Eaten Alive, which tells the story of a hotel owner who gets rid of his sweethearts by feeding them to his pet alligator. The Amityville Horror, based on the book of the same name, follows the paranormal events that terrorized the Lodge family. In 1975, the family moved into 112 Ocean Avenue, where unbeknownst to them, Ronald DeFeo Jr. had brutally murdered his family 13 months before they arrived. While in their new home, the family claimed that they saw green slime on the walls and red-eyed pigs staring into their kitchen and living room. After less than a month, the Lodge family moved out of the small town of Amityville, New York. Psycho. Psycho's Norman Bates is loosely based on convicted murderer and grave robber Ed Gein, who during the late 1950s killed women and unearthed corpses in Wisconsin. He also fashioned human skin into tiny keepsakes and knickknacks such as face masks, belts, and chair coverings. Psycho's novelist Robert Bloch based Bates on Gein but changed the character from a grave robber and murderer into a serial killer who dressed like his mother. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Silence of the Lambs also based their serial killers Leatherface and Buffalo Bill, respectively, on Gein. The Zodiac. The Zodiac Killer was a North California serial killer during the late 1960s and early 1970s. The Zodiac Killer has 5 confirmed murders and claimed to have committed 37 killings in total. During the time of the murders, the killer was corresponding to local law enforcement and media through cryptic letters. He would sign all the letters with a symbol to the left. Each letter would contain an even increasing score. Arthur Lee Allen was the only suspect in the killings, but he was never charged. fingerprints that were left from the Zodiac killer didn't match those of Allen's. Despite this, 22 years after one of the murders, a witness picked Allen's photo out of a lineup as the shooter. Allen died from kidney failure due to diabetes in 1992. The case remains open and was recently featured on 2011 episode of America's Most Wanted. Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. Henry Lee Lucas was born in Virginia in 1936. Lucas was the youngest of 9 children, born to Viola Dixon Waugh, an alcoholic prostitute. His father was an alcoholic who had lost his legs in an accident. Lucas had a traumatic childhood that involved beatings and sexual trauma from his mother. According to his family, his mother would sometimes force him to watch her have sex with men and dress him up in women's clothing. At age 10, Lucas was stabbed in his eye, eventually leading to it being replaced by a glass eye. After his father died of hypothermia, Lucas fled his home and began his life as a drifter. In 1951, Lucas claimed he committed his first murder when he strangled a 17-year-old girl to death. Lucas also claimed that he committed acts of bestiality during his early time as a drifter. In 1959, Lucas moved to Michigan to live with his half-sister Opal. The next year, his mother visited him in Michigan, only to be murdered by Lucas after a dispute. Lucas was arrested and sentenced to 40 years in prison. After 10 years in prison, Lucas was released due to overcrowding. After being released, Lucas drifted around the American South doing odd jobs. He met a man named Otis Toole and started a romantic relationship with his 12-year-old niece, Frida Powell. Lucas claimed that the trio committed hundreds of murders during their time together. In 1983, Lucas was arrested for unlawful firearm possession and later charged for a murder of an 82-year-old man. Lucas confessed to literally hundreds of murders over the next few years. Whether he committed the crimes or not is still in contention. Lucas died of heart failure in prison in 2001. He was 64. A Nightmare on Elm Street. Wes Craven based A Nightmare on Elm Street on a series of newspaper articles from the Los Angeles Times about a strange phenomenon where young Asian refugees would mysteriously die in their sleep. It was reported that many would refuse to sleep, citing terrifying nightmares that they feared would lead to death. Another influence to the movie was the son of a physician. He was about 21. I've subsequently found out this is a phenomenon in Laos, Cambodia. Everybody in his family said almost exactly these lines. "You must sleep." He said, "No, you don't understand. I've had nightmares before. This is different." He was given sleeping pills and told to take them and supposedly did, but he stayed up. I forget what the total days he stayed up was, but it was a phenomenal amount, something like 6-7 days. Finally, he was watching television with the family, fell asleep on the couch, and everybody said, "Thank God." They literally carried him upstairs to the bed. He was completely exhausted. Everybody went to bed thinking it was all over. In the middle of the night, they heard screams and crashing. They ran into the room, and by the time they got to him, he was dead. They had an autopsy performed, and there was no heart attack. He just had died for unexplained reasons. They found in his closet a Mr. Coffee maker full of hot coffee that he had used to keep awake, and they also found all his sleeping pills that they thought he had taken. He had spit them back out and hidden them. Hey there, and thank you so much for listening. If you like this video, please leave a thumbs up. And if you like my videos and want to see more, subscribe to my channel. And I will see you all in my next video.